What's good, guys? Your boy, Mr. Old School Ryder. Come back at you one more again. We actually streaming on a few channels tonight. I had to blow the dust off of Flexing for Less. That means we're going to be talking about fashion and a bunch of other things as well. We also streaming on Mr. Old School Ryder, the main channel. Also, what's playing now does have something to do with music as well. I have one of the legendary fashion houses in hip hop history, of course. I want to bring you guys on. You seen his work all over the place from like way back in the day to right now. Let's give a shout out to Mr. Willie Esco. What's going on, sir?
Hello. How you doing? Hello, everybody listening,
Um,
watching. Will Esco calling, tuning in from New Jersey, as always.
so, are you originally from New Jersey or are you from somewhere else, Willie?
No, my family's from Puerto Rico, but I've been born and raised in Newark, New Jersey. I'm still in Jersey, but not in Newark, but still got love for Newark, of course.
Oh, Puerto Rico. Okay, that's actually a fun fact right now. I did not know that.
Yeah. Puerto Rican. My
I thought you
mother,
might have been something else, for some reason.
Yeah. No, I'm Puerto Rican. I'm the first generation coming here, and since the '70s, and figure out a way to make money in fashion. So I always loved fashion. So start at an early age.
So you since you started at an early age, what was your first time putting something together?
Well, when it, my story is really sort of complicated in that um, I had two sisters, right? Four, there's four of us, three siblings, one older brother, and I'm the youngest. And in between is two sisters that constantly asked for support in selection of color, of shoes, dresses, combinations of when they were going out, which shoe did I like, or which
Mm.
outfit did I like? Because they were, um, just trying to get my point of view on it. And they enjoyed asking me how I felt about the outfits they were wearing. And I enjoyed, you know, the banter with my sisters and picking out stuff. So I think it's from that early age of looking at how clothing was important to people back in the day, and then I also internalized that for myself. I had to make sure what I was wearing was along the lines and as critical as I would give them the advice on. So that's where I think the earliest thing with fashion I remember was third grade class picture. My dad took me to New York, probably somewhere on Canal Street. I picked an outfit from like, maybe somewhere in Delancey or something. It's just a nice little outfit, um, white tie, almost like a houndstooth pattern jacket. And I remember picking it, and that was the first thing I ever remember. And from that point on, I was obsessed with ties and how they looked. I went to Catholic school, so wasn't too much original items I could wear daily other than how I tied the tie and what shoes I wore. So that was limited in expression. But nonetheless, that was my first real expressionary forte into fashion. Very limited, but from that point on, it evolved into art. I was creative at a very early age because my brother was an artist, was drawing. I wouldn't say he's an artist. He was drawing, and I like drawing. And then my good friend was an artist, so I had a good um, couple of folks around me, my brother and my good friend, that sort of bookmarked me on drawing. Now, I was not as good as them at all, but the sketching was all during class, and I would get in trouble for it. But I think fashion, critiquing, picking, and then drawing, uh, I would have never guessed that you can make money from fashion, but as a man, right? I thought it was a woman's thing. So as I got older, uh, the big thing was music, music and hip hop, really got me on the trajectory of finding what I wanted to do for a living.
So what time period was that, Willie, back then? Once you put fashion and hip hop together, basically.
So yeah, I was a Catholic school boy. You know, I went to Catholic school up until 8th grade. I was traditional Catholic kid, and um, a lot of camping was involved when I was camping because I didn't have a lot of money. So going camping was an escape from the city. Not a lot of food. I would get a lot of food when I go camping. So I was outdoors guy, and then my high school was a private school, um, St. Benedict's Prep in Newark. And around that time, going into high school, disco was a big thing. So I'm a big disco was transforming. You have Michael Jackson off the wall, very legendary sounds coming around that time, Prince, and so going to St. Benedict's Prep allowed me to go into downtown Newark. My high school's downtown. It's a pretty well-known school nowadays, but back then it was a quiet private school, all boys, and it was all the teachers were monks. But the big thing for that school was end of the year, you pass to go on from a freshman to a sophomore if you did a 50-mile hike in Appalachian Trails, which tends to build brotherhood. Now, when I went to that school, I loved it. I was already writing a lot of graffiti. I got in trouble because there was no graffiti in the school, and there was only one graffiti artist tagging up the entire school, which was me, and I got quickly caught. So they knew that I was a little wild. It was only one. I didn't even think of it, but there was no graffiti on the walls, and I saw it as an empty canvas, and I put my tag, which was Puma, all over the place, and they just tracked it back to my books pretty quickly. But that was my first expression into art, and I thought maybe I should take art a little bit more seriously, but simultaneously 81, 82, 83, you have this thing called hip hop music, and it was taking some of disco, which I liked, and it was doing these new beats, and it was rhyming, and I didn't hear it before, and once I started hearing it, I was like, wow, this is cool, and I started understanding it's from our culture, our era. And it was what rock and roll was to the youth of the 50s. So I was like, all right, this is kind of cool. And it had a look. You had a code, dress code. It had art included, which was graffiti. I was already doing graffiti. And it had a thing called MC and a DJ. And it had an element called breakdancing. So I had two of the categories. I had graffiti and I had breakdancing. So those two things I used as sort of guides to help me form who I was going to be and how I was going to sort of be as an adult in the world, right? But high school was pivotal for me, right? So that's 83. By 83, 84, I really knee deep into breakdancing. I was thinking I was going to make money forever breakdancing. And I got into a competition called Swatch Watch, 1984. We came in second place. A young man in your neck of the woods called, his name, Jermaine Dupri won that one. I came in second place there. And it was kind of odd that a group from New Jersey came in second place in something that was created in New York City. But yeah, that year Jermaine Dupri won 84, and I decided to really focus in on hip hop music and all that sort of stuff. And I just didn't see what I was going to do for a living at the time. I was just so immersed in breakdancing.
Hold on. I got to bring that back for 1 second.
Yeah.
You said Jermaine Dupri from So Def came in first place against you?
Yeah, we were in a thing called Swatch Watch competition, and it was a thing, right? It was very similar to American Idol or something like that, but for breakdancing. And you see a lot of Sprite commercials today. Like Sprite commercials are really tapped into our hip hop culture. They were one of the first sponsors to come on board and really sponsor the culture, sponsor the tour. So you got Watch, which is a watch company. I think it's out of France or Swiss, and they came on sponsored. So we were at the Roxy. It was filmed at the Roxy, and the previous year, my
Willie, you still there? I like you froze up or something.
hello. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, you froze up for some reason. Okay.
I'm sorry. So yeah, he's one guy from New Jersey who was part of the Dynamic Breakers. So that gave me some inspiration. That's 83. And then 84 came along. 84 came along and we came in second place. Now, I will tell you this, that Jermaine Dupri was a little kid. He's real small. He was I don't know how old he was. He's very little. Okay. I'm older than Jermaine. And he was with a crew, and they were all ringers. Why? They were ringers because two of the crew that we would see this crew in Washington Square Park. You know, a big thing was to go on the weekends and make money in the park, right? So we'd make a couple $100 for food and hanging out. But Jermaine Dupri was there, and he would be like, you know, a novelty act. Like he would bring the little kid out and they get more money because the little kid was out there with a hat. You know, you're not going to give the kid money, right? So they were in this group, and come to find out, we won the crowd over. We felt we were going to be on tour. We first concert ever of its kind, Fresh Fest, was the winning team would go on tour with them, right? And that's where two of the members of that group were judges. So it was a big group, and they got them in to win that one. So you will see now. The proof is, anybody listening, proof is go check out. I think it's Freaks Come Out at Night. The video. You'll see my boy cuts off the tour bus first, which I'm very jealous. My boy gets off with that sheepskin. I'm serious. I'm very clear. This gave me my drive, everybody. He gets off with a sheepskin coat. He had won the last year, so he was still on tour. And Jermaine Dupri, the new winners, were on tour with him. Jermaine Dupri gets off second. His little kid. And everybody's like, wow, this little kid's on tour with them. Where's his mother? Where's his father? You know, so we came in second place. We won some money, but we didn't go on tour. So from that point on, I was like, oh man, so I got to figure out what to do with my life. I went to Rutgers in 1985. I basically went over to Rutgers for 2 years, and I started really focusing on fashion, or getting into FIT. One, because of a movie, American Gigolo. I saw that movie, and I was really, really inspired by that guy who was well-dressed. I forgot his name, but the music was good, and it inspired me to want to get into fashion, more high-end fashion. And FIT was a place to go if you wanted to go. You know, the stipulation was anyone that went there was considered gay. And I was like, well, maybe they'll just accept me as I'm not gay, but I want to go learn the art, right? So 85 to 88.
Uh-oh. Hold on, Willie, where you going? How did I disappear?
No,
okay, there you go.
Somebody called me. From 85 to 88, I was at Rutgers, did all my course, and transferred to FIT, which was a very competitive place to be. But by then I knew that I can compete, I can do this fashion thing, I can make money, and I really love fashion. So by 88, I figured out what I was going to try to do to make money. From 85 to 88, I was working at a bank. I knew that banking life was not for me. It's very boring. And fashion was the place to be. You wear nice clothes, you talk to beautiful women, and You know, I was like, this could be it. But there was no urban fashion. This would be very clear. No urban. There was no. I was taking a huge dive into a space that no one like me would be there. You know, it was just hip hop fashion did not exist in '88. So
Oh wow.
now there was no hip hop anything in '88. There was small designers, but maybe you might have been black or Latin, but you were trying to be runway, runway designer. So by '89, I'm in FIT and I'm working part time. But it was very hard to get into FIT.
So you can tell us what is FIT?
FIT is short for Fashion Institute of Technology. Produced Calvin Klein. A lot of big famous people went there. It's a part of the New York State system of schools, but it's probably the most known. There are other high-end schools, but FIT was really gritty, New York-based school, right in not Times Square, but 27th Street, heart of Manhattan. One city block of all schools, all buildings that dedicated to fashion. 27th Street. So I'd get off, I'd take the train, and my focus was fashion illustration. So I wanted to be a fashion designer, but I didn't know how to sew. So I looked at all the curriculum, and there's no internet at this time, everybody. So there's no research like that. You got to go to a library to research, which is archaic for everyone. I did all the research by going to the school, getting a catalog, reading everything. And the only thing I felt I had natural talent for was fashion illustration. And transferring from Rutgers into there was difficult because you got to get past a committee, almost like Flashdance. If anybody's seen Flashdance, to get into the ballet team, they had to do a special dance or whatever. For me, it was showing my work to get in. So graduating out of high school, I didn't do it on time, so I missed it, and I went to Rutgers. But this time in '88, I was very focused, and the catalog that I felt that I can do was the category, was fashion illustration, and that's art. And I read everything on the list, and I noticed that there was a young teacher teaching in the high school next to my high school. And now it was odd because it's a New York school, but she was teaching a night school for fashion illustration right next to my high school. So and she was on the board of getting people into the school. So I'm very crafty when it comes to all that stuff. I did the research and I got to be her best friend, and she got me in. So networking was early on for me. And again, not a lot of people like me in that space, fashion illustration, fashion design at FIT. So trying to go in with my gut, really saying I wanted to be in fashion, and being happy to be able to do work that has to do with art. I felt that I was getting paid to do something I liked, no matter what it was. I was willing to do whatever to be in the space just so I could sit down and draw all day, and I would make money. So that's where I ended up there. And I actually did very well when I got in, and because I'm 2 years older than everybody that got there. So I was a little bit more older and more focused, let's just say,
Yeah, you had a little bit more drive and hustle, being a little bit older.
And remember, what drove me was I got jerked. Jermaine Dupri jerked me.
Oh man.
I was that close to fame. I was like, I could have been. No, but we talk about it. I think I talked to him a long time ago about this. And my boy who actually went on tour. And it was the very early stages of hip hop. It was very special because nobody knew how big hip hop was, right? Certainly was not in Atlanta at the time or Georgia. It was New York based. And Houdini was, the Fat Boys, Houdini, that Fresh Fest tour, the first one, Run DMC. That one was incredible. I didn't know how they pulled it off. I don't know. I didn't know that many people loved hip hop, but I knew that, this was something that was going to be big. And the crazy part is We're only talking the vertical of music. There's another vertical of fashion. So it spilled into fashion. Luckily for me, it spilled over in time for me to get out of school and start making money at it.
Oh, you hit it right on the money then. What it
Yeah, I
sounded
was
like,
like,
right?
yep, double Dutch, like just right timing, you know. But I keep telling Jermaine, if I was on the bus, I'd be a producer, and I'd be a big time producer, just like he was, because I would have learned. You learn from the space you're in, right? So if you're running with all these Rick Rubin and all these guys, I would have figured out a way to, monetize the space I was in.
Yeah, that's what's it about, being around the situation and monetizing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Really important.
Oh man, that is wild right there.
It's
So
a
when
little
did you? So I'm gonna ask you a few questions about some of the what's some of the brands that you was around back then, like influence or had your hand into.
well, getting into the space, right? So I am this is 91, 92. The beginning stages were little brands that were doing what we call today pop-ups. So maybe at Freaknik in your neck of the woods. Um, Anywhere there was a concert, there was t-shirts being sold. The art of screen printing was being understood by our culture, right? Um, Not concert going tees, not so much that, more so graffiti on t-shirts. So that was a way I saw I could make money. And the brands that were doing it back then, very early, of course, the beginning was Russell was doing Fat Farm. You had April Walker, you had Carl Kanai. Cross Colors was probably the first official brand out there, which gave us Carl Kanai. But
Mm.
just prior to that, the high-end fashion guys were Patrick Kelly, Byron Lars, a couple of those guys um, that were doing high-end fashion, but they were of our color, right? Um, so you have this new look of designer, Stephen Barrows out of Newark. So you have these new look, these designers that are not French, that are not from Paris, they're from here, and they're Calvin Klein. You got these guys that are now American-made fashion icons. Yeah, Ralph. So you have this. All right, it's not just coming from overseas in Europe, and what I saw in American Gigolo was that Italian and European designers. So I started seeing these new faces, and really Cross Colors was a really big not understanding that it was black owned. You have 40 Acres and a Mule, which is Spike's stuff. You had these brands popping up, and you start saying, wow, I wish I could do that. Two Black Guys was another one out west. So there's small brands that are probably I only know, but they influence. They're like me. They want to do fashion, and how do we do it? So there were small brands, popping up, doing what they felt they needed to do to get into the space. But Cross Colors was the big one. Carl Jones, and then Carl came from there. Carl and I came from there.
Oh wow.
But the really wild thing was those two came out that flourished, and then you had someone like April Walker, who I always give praise to. April was, and you should interview her because she's a female in our real male-dominated space of hip hop, to be doing and working with Tupac and Biggie, and she was dressing everybody. And the formula was, I sort of understood the formula. If you style a video shoot, you get to put your clothes on it. So I started seeing that. So that led me to become a stylist for Daniel Hastings, who a very famous photographer in our space at the time. Daniel Hastings shot the cover of Wu-Tang, the first Wu-Tang album cover, Raekwon's album cover, Big Pun. So he was shooting a lot of guys, and I was practicing my pitch, practicing product placement, getting ready and get my mind ready for the opportunity. I don't know what the opportunity was going to be, right? But the opportunity. So I'm big on just doing stuff, not understanding what it is or the value of it yet, but there's a purpose. So if I'm driven by my higher power to do something, and I sleep on things a lot, it tells me to do it. Just do it. Don't look for money. And a lot of it was that. A lot of it was just, yeah, this feels good. I'm gonna do this, and I don't know where it's gonna lead me, but something tells me it's gonna lead me to good things. So doing a styling thing, I didn't make a lot of money, but I met a lot of people. Fat Joe, Big Pun, all these guys, and it led me to the point where I knew my way around the set. I knew that given the opportunity, I'd be able to do my own clothing line, and I'd be able to pick up the phone and call some folks to place product on. But don't know what the brand would be. Didn't know how it manifests itself. And by 19, my son was, I think my son was like 2. I had a newborn, 95, and by 97. I'm working on the FIT. I'm working I'm out of FIT, excuse me, and I'm working on 7th Avenue. And my boss's friend had 7 stores in Chicago.
Oh man.
Yeah, he had 7 stores in Chicago, young men's stores, which I found fascinating, right? And by 97, you have now, we're talking 95 to 97. I'm styling, yes, and you have Wu-Tang, Wu-Wear, right? You have Tommy's doing very well. Tommy, had understood the market very well. You had Fubu. You had Pure Players, a couple other brands, and I was pulling those clothes. You had Pele Pele. You go to these showrooms, pull the clothes for the artists, and put them on the artist, and then return the clothes. And I built a rapport with the showroom. Then I started understanding how showrooms work. You show the collection, they buy, and then you show another collection, they buy. So I started understanding how everything was working from a logistical standpoint. Not thinking I'd ever get the opportunity, but I was happy doing what I was doing. And by 97, by 96, my son is 1 at the time. I was making good money. I was making like 50K or something like that. And
Man, that was great money back then.
yeah, I was good. I was really good. I was really happy. And I'm doing stuff for like Costco, designs for that. You go in there, you pitch them, you try and get an order. And I was always behind the scenes. I would never get any FaceTime with any buyers or anything. So my partner's friend says, I just got the license for Pele Pele. Now, I don't know what that was. I don't know. You're talking over my head. Like you bought the license. Like that had to do with driving. I didn't know anything about anything. I looked it up. I found out about it later. I have the license for Pele Pele. Okay, cool. What do you need me to do? It's the license is for underwear. So I have the right to sell the underwear. I'm going to this trade show in Las Vegas called Magic, 1996.
I was about to ask you about that too. I'm glad you touched on that. But tell us about the Magic Show.
Magic Show is the men's show, the Men's Apparel Guild of California. But they moved the show to Vegas. And it's a big one-stop shop for any brand you want in footwear and apparel. You go there and you go see everything that brand has. You buy it and book it to put in your store 3 to 6 to 8 months later. So this guy who has the right for the underwear, Pele Pele was a brand that was doing very well. And he said, I have the rights for the underwear. Why did you buy the rights for the underwear? I'm talking, I'm saying, you see Tupac wearing, Tommy Hilfiger underwear, Aaliyah. You see everybody wearing underwear back then. Underwear was a thing, Marky Mark. So that thinking stuck with me. I was like, wow, he's really understanding, like he can sell some underwear from a brand that's already selling in that area. So Mark Buchanan owned the brand Pele Pele, and he was from Detroit area. And this guy had 6, 7 stores in the area. So I did the work for free. He comes back with $2 million of orders and is way. He's like, whatever you did, I don't want it. I sold $2 million. I'm only making 200. He gets the rest of the money. I don't want to give away this money no more. You do your own thing, call it whatever you want, and we'll split the money 50-50 or 30, 30, 30, because my boss was there. And I was like, I don't understand what you're saying, but okay. He's basically saying he came back with so much orders, he didn't want to share that money with the primary holder of the brand. I'd rather create my own brand. So that attitude was like, do your own thing. Call it whatever you want, you know? And that was the moment. That's the moment of truth. So 1996 in the summer, February, I had the whole summer. That was, hey man, what are you gonna call it? What are you gonna do? I don't care what it is. So I'm thinking, that's a bit like, imagine, I don't know what brings you so much joy that you can cry, right? You can be like, maybe a child was born, right? But that was one of those moments, right? I'm like, are you telling me I could do whatever I want in terms of a brand? I'm gonna have my own brand with a label. He's like, yeah, just do it, because you proved yourself to me. And that didn't charge him anything, okay? There was no charge. But my boss at the time was very impressed. He didn't know I had that talent. And Lenny, who has stores in Chicago called The Lark, cool guy. And he would tell me, like, I got these kids, Kanye comes in there, and this guy comes, it was young Kanye, very young Kanye, right? So his clientele was crazy up there in Detroit area, and he gave me the opportunity. So I took it without understanding the legal side of it. But I knew that I had some studying to do. I need to learn what trademarks were, and I needed to get educated without acting, looking stupid. So I asked what the splits were, going into it. I did something that was very uncomfortable at the time for you listening. Go in, someone offers you a lifetime opportunity, you still have to ask what the business dynamics of that would be. For them, it was a third, right?
Oh, sure.
So it was 33% of whatever the brand makes. And I said, okay, that sounds fair, right? We're all even. But no paperwork was drawn up. And I felt that was kind of odd. But I didn't do it, right? This guy's my boy, I said, well, what am I going to do? I'm working for you now. Can I dedicate all my time to this? He says, yeah, sure, no problem. With that comes is the understanding that if it fails, I may not have a job, because they will get accustomed of me not working on the other projects, and usually they'll cut you. So starting in March, I started my project. By the summertime, I had the collection together. The name was really a combination of monikers that were used in the industry. Nas was using the word Escobar a lot. Pablo Escobar probably was a big thing. I don't know what year he was killed, but it was just a popular moniker. And my family names, there's an Escobar in there, so I used the two together to sort of draft off the brand equity of what Nas was doing, and at the same time ensure success for my partners, because I felt like if Nas is using the moniker Esco or Escobar, there's a reason. He wants to emulate toughness or successfulness, and I felt like I need to tap into that. So I combined the two. Why did I combine the two? I made it personal, because for some reason I felt there's going to be life after this brand. I'm in the young man space, and it's almost like understanding that your brand that you're about to create is going to die. So if that's the case, what are you going to call this brand that people can point backwards and say, remember that brand X or that person X? I would rather it be the person than the brand. So you can I named the brand called Pure Players, but you wouldn't know who was behind it. But if you name the brand Willie Esco, there's actually a person. So I felt like having the foresight to see past that and say, I'm going to brand myself while I'm doing this exercise was really important. And along the way, I learned the legal side of things. I learned how to trademark my name. It turns out that, I was this close to not getting a deal because my first trade show, I made like 30,000. I thought that was good. Wasn't good for my partners, so they lost interest right away. And I felt like I was on the chopping block by the end of that 96 year. And my partners were like, "That was a good exercise." I knew that I was probably going to be laid off because I wasn't doing any of the other work. And I did one last trade show as like a goodbye. Yeah, I did one trade show in New York. At the time, it was called NAM. It's the men's show in New York. And I met my future partners. My future partners owned with Damon John, Fubu. So they were having tons of success, right? And I was going through the motions. And remember, I don't care what I was doing as long as I was creating. So I did my whole booth by myself. My showroom girl was not really showing my brand any love. So I attended the trade show myself, and I was my own salesman. I put the show together, put the product together, and that show is really important because I felt it was the end of the exercise I was doing, and I felt very happy about given the opportunity, but I felt it was like I was doomed. Right? But my showroom person says, I have 2 guys coming. They want to buy this other brand in our room. Can you keep them entertained while I go to the bathroom if they come? And it was the Fubu owners. They came by to look at Naughty by Nature's clothing line, and I was there. And they asked me what I do, and I showed them the brand. And their light bulbs went off in their head. They're like, "Oh, we have Fubu, so let's get the Latin version of it." And that's what they loved. I was Latin, and I was doing something that was, and they got it. They got it right away. So I walked out of there with a deal, essentially. I just had to get the other guys out, and I had to pretend like I had to put on airs as if I didn't make any money or no connections. So from October to December, I negotiated my deal. Now remember, I was making $50K, right? So the deal on the table was $250K starting. Now that's pretty good jump, right?
Oh, yo, big old jump.
Yeah. So I had that deal on the table. I had to pretend like I was sad about losing or they were gonna lay me off. I knew they were gonna lay me off, right? I had to pretend like I was desperate. I wanted to keep the job, and I just didn't let them know anything. And by the time, I think it was January 30th, I signed my deal. And I had a new office in the Empire State Building, and they called me in to lay me off. And it was wild because they did help me to get to the point where I was at, but they didn't do any paperwork for me. So that was a blessing.
Oh yeah, lucky you didn't have like a non-compete clause in there. You lucked out on that, man.
They didn't want to spend the money doing any of that, and then and as I was leaving, I said, "Oh, by the way, you mind if I continue doing this Willie Escobar thing?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." The only way I told them, it's the only way I'm going to make money. Do you mind? But as I'm leaving, they gave me severance pay and everything. It was beautiful.
Oh,
I played
man.
very well. and then, but I went from there to my own office. People were working already. It was wild. It was wild. So I walked a fine line to get where I'm at. And I usually do that by, being really centered spiritually. And I always try to do good by anybody I try to help. Anybody need information, I always try to give back, information, really. All the people wanted information. I never got the information. I had to find it.
Yeah, especially back then, the stuff wasn't on the internet. It really wasn't the internet like we have it right now.
It was no.
You basically had to be trial and error, and also had to go to the library and go through so many books and articles to figure out that information.
Yeah, I went to the library to find out about trademarking. My deal was put on the table. I went to the library to file my trademark.
It cost a lot back then, right?
Actually, no, it was only $100, but it was a lot of money for me. $125, but it was a lot of money for me back then. But I went by the gut, and it all worked out. You know, a lot of networking was learned from that. You know.
Yes, sir. So I'm
So
going to ask
that puts me to Esco days. And then after that, you know, after I do many years of Esco, I would say I did maybe a 10-year run with that. And as we grow, as we got bigger, everyone should understand. Similar to a record label, you're a new artist that comes onto a label. You have an older artist above you that knows the label dynamic. That would be Damon John of Shark Tank and Fubu. And I learned a lot because he was working with them already. But there was a lot of jealousy because I am Puerto Rican. I somehow snuck into the dynamics of getting a deal under their noses. And I actually went to school for it. So there was a lot of tension, jealousy. So I had to deal with that for many years. Then they had LL Cool J. I ended up getting Nas on board with me. Now, Nas is from Queens. Those guys were from Queens, so they felt slighted a little bit using someone from Queens. So it was a lot of politics, which led me to which is relevant to your location. I wanted to get out of it. I had a big argument with Nas. Nas was, you know, arguing with Jay-Z, one of the iconic battles of the day, and I was in the middle of all that. And
oh no.
yeah, so it hurt. It hurt. What I found out is like it was all tribal. So your brand goes as your artist goes. So if Nas hits a peak, I hit a peak. If Nas hits a low, so goes the brand. So I felt being tethered to him was not the right thing to do, but it was what my partners wanted because of LL. So being associated with Fubu. So I had to get out of it. My son was now, you know, much older. I want to spend a lot of time with my son. So I looked at the system again, the way it was set up, and the way, you know, this thing comes up again called licensing. And I was like, what can I do that I could just collect money? I do my talent. I'm not the face. So from that point on, I did two things. I revived the brand Gucci in 2004, and I brought the global rights to Tupac Shakur. I worked with Afeni, and we created a clothing line called Machiavelli. And that, you know, that allowed me to stay home, work. Tupac, everybody loves Tupac. So
Oh, yeah, that's true.
all the clothing that's put out, any clothing that's put out is not politically connected to anything, but it's connected to our Elvis, right? And I was able to live comfortably and design comfortably, and everybody would wear, you know. At the time, Ludacris was big. So Ludacris was one of my first ads. He did the ads for free, you know. Teddy Boy, which is 2 Chainz, free. DJ Quick, free. Everybody did the ads for free because of Tupac.
Oh,
so
boy.
I was able to chill out for a while, just designing clothes, not being the face, you know. Coogee did well too. Coogee did about 60 million. And I was able to sort of just chill out and enjoy the fruits of my labor for a little while until I got back into it with footwear, with my brand Clar. I relaunched Coogee in 2014 with the Fifth and Rag and Bone. So I'm constantly staying in the mix of reinventing things, looking back, acquiring brands that I like. You know, I know the industry so well. I know what brand can be revived, what brand can't be revived, and that's the business I'm in. Sort of a little bit of my own, but a little bit of a touch of revival.
So Willie, what made you get dealt with Coogee?
Coogee was an acquisition. So the dynamic behind Coogee was Coogee was created in 1969 by Jackie Toronto. They had tremendous success in the 70s, 80s. They dipped a little bit, and they resorted to being probably one of the first luxury brands to rely on hip hop culture. But what I mean by that is it's a very expensive item that the distribution was very limited at the time in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. But by mid 80s, he was not doing so well. But no one in the hip hop community knew that. So buying a $400 sweater, mid 80s, drug dealers, rappers. So, you have that happening, and the perception is it's a luxury brand. So it's one of the first luxury brands to sort of allow hip hop culture to purchase product and wear endorsed product, right? So I knew that. So my partners, who the way my system was set up was we had Samsung and we had Fubu and Willie Esco, and as competition got tougher, like I mentioned, my partners were reluctant on buying any other brands that competed with Fubu. So I was approached by Dame Dash, Rockaware. I was approached by Echo, Purchase. Many brands would come to us because we had Samsung as our financial partner.
Oh, that's a big packet, man.
Yeah. So our main guys were, Damon John, and the partners were like, no, we don't want to mess up our apple cart. When actually I was blown away by not acquiring these brands. That means you're acquiring more customers. The more acquisitions you make, and that Google mentality was not understood at the time. So you acquire the brand, acquire the threat was the term. So they didn't believe in that. So I would say, you should buy. Puff came to us. I'm creating this thing called Sean John, and I would tell David John, I'm like, that's a good brand to buy. It's your last name, bro. You should buy that. you should work with Puff. And they were competitive. They were just competitive. I was not competitive. I understood the business, and I wanted to acquire while we had the strength, because the youth market goes away from you very fast. And that led to them getting tired of turning down deals. Fat Farm. A lot of brands just came to us and said, please, can you help us? We need money. And we would turn them away. But by the time 2004, they were not doing so well. Fubu. I was not doing well with my brand, and we were losing our market share. So they had to buy a brand that they can revive. So that was Coogee. Coogee had went into bankruptcy. They bought it for $7 million, and then they gave me the task. Yeah, they gave me the task to revive it. So I revived it in 2004. Then I did Machiavelli, of course, Tupac at the same time. And then I came back in 2011, 2012 to revive it again. I revived it again.
Yeah, I mean, I always loved Coogee myself. I wasn't able to afford the sweaters myself, but I mean, I got a hat one time. Somebody gave it to me, but I mean, it was some fly stuff, but it just wasn't in my range back then,
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. I understand.
It's just one of those brands that's always going to stand the test of time. It's going to be like, I mean, you're always going to have household names like Gucci and Versace, and pretty much Coogee is pretty much up there from the time they've been around.
Yep. Coogee is iconic. Very, very iconic.
So I'm going to ask a few questions here real quick about what we talked about earlier. So I think back in the day on your brand Esco, yeah, I thought that was like Nas the whole time. Like back then, I'm like, damn, he got a clothing line. I mean, I was copying it.
Yeah. No, it was to be original game plan was to go after the Latin market, the Latin space, and give a brand to Latinos because they were huge numbers. The numbers were growing tremendously. And that was my space to fill. But I was going to fill it in a very clever way. To guarantee success, I would use terminology in hip hop that was being used, and I can market it because it's already in the songs. So Escobar was a moniker that was marketed, and it touched on many different points.
In the part, Willie, I think back then, like everybody wanted to be big time, like Big Willie.
Yeah. So it all made sense, right? So you see what I'm saying? I tapped into the ideology of hip hop. He had a good friend, Ill Will, who passed away. So New Yorkers thought he's paying homage to his good friend Ill Will, which I didn't care either way. I just wanted to do my fashion. So we started. I mean, in the very beginning, it was really easy going. It's only till later on when all the politics gets involved that you have these dynamics of power play that I own my company, my partners on the other end would have to all agree there with more. I couldn't pull off my partners were not. So we bumped heads financially, but we're cool today.
Oh man, all that matters. It just takes time to sort everything out sometimes.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think everybody's older and wiser.
So nowadays, what you working on right? I mean, what you working on nowadays yourself?
Right now, I'm really focused on the brands that are going to bring me joy. So I do Coogee now. I do all of the collaborations you see. I do limited work on Coogee. The brand, I revived the brand in 2015 by because the brand Urban itself, let's say Urban as we know it, sort of died in 06, 07. And these brands like True Religion came along. These other brands came and made a lot of money. But Coogee sort of went away for maybe 2 or 3 years. And then I wanted to revive it because I knew social media, the power of it was that all these sweaters, vintage sweaters, were popping up Coogee. And I felt it was a good time to revive the brand from a sweater perspective. Not big jeans, baggy clothes. I was only focused on sweaters. So, and my goal was to revive the brand with a higher price than was original. So the sweaters were $450. I went up to $650, and I brought in collaborators. I brought in Kif on the men's side, Ronnie, and I brought in Rag and Bone as my female partner. So that 20-year 15, we were on the runway with collaboration with Rag and Bone, and we were at the street level at KIF in New York. So we had a good balance of reintroduction to the streets at a higher price point. So I started doing that for a couple of years. I relaunched a brand called Etonic, but I didn't own it. And I wanted to, if the opportunity presented itself, acquire a sneaker brand because I felt footwear was going to be a big category, streetwear, and going to be a huge demand. It's 2015, so I'm like, reselling market's not really there yet, but it's there. And I wondered if there was a brand that was available, or do I create one that caters to us, Black and brown folks? Now, for the audience, understanding that footwear and hip hop really run our pop culture, right? So footwear, if you look at all of American brands in footwear, all of them, take them all, none are owned by Black or brown folks. Yes, you have Jordan, but remember, above Jordan, who's his boss is Phil Knight. You had Kanye, but who's his boss? Germans and Adidas. So I always look at things very analytical. I saw it as for what it was, and I'm like, man, it would be amazing if I can acquire a brand somehow that I can has the heritage, that has sneakers from the 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s, has heritage, right? And I can bring back, right? There was nothing like it. And as I'm doing Etonic and reviving Etonic, it's not a brand I really cared for, but I did to learn the food. I came across a brand who had its roots in Boston. Brand was owned by Franklin Sports, and the reason why I remember the brand, because I remember the high school I went to, and prep. I was an avid basketball player. I broke dance, break dance, and I played basketball. So I was in the high school team. One of those teams was sponsored by this brand called right here called Jaclar. Now, from a distance, it looks like Jaguar, right? So I would see these kids in the layup lines when practicing because we're about to play the game. I'd see them all sponsored by this one brand. I'm like, that's cool. That's a cool. And it's different than today. There was no sneakerheads back then. So we're talking 80, 81, 82. Right? There's no sneaker culture. It's just, if you didn't have a car, your sneakers were your car. And I treated sneakers like my vehicle. I needed to keep them clean and dope. My brand was Puma, and I saw this brand look like Puma upside down. And I couldn't ask these guys, what's the name of that brand you're wearing? Because I might get beat up, right? I'm on the court. We're about to play a game, right? But it always stuck in the back of my mind. So we're talking 81. And as I'm doing research for Etonic many years later, talking, 2016, my research led me to watch a 30 for 30 ESPN. And in that 30 for 30, if you watch it, John Calipari, One and Done, it's called, you'll see a young John Calipari in an entire team is wearing Jaclar t-shirts and Jaclar background, and the camp, which was 5-star basketball camp, was sponsored by Jaclar. And then that's when it clicked. I was like, that's it. Let's see if I can get that. And it was available, and I got it. So the shoe that I never got to buy, the first time I had it was when I made it.
Oh wow, that is crazy, man.
So now the job is to educate. That's why I'll take as many interviews as possible. The job is to educate kids out there. Everything Kanye was complaining about, although some of it was ignorant, the frustrations were real. You have a successful brand, but you have someone above you calling the shots, right? So there's frustration there. Jordan played it the opposite way. You guys do whatever you want. You guys do, you should do what I suggest to you. But so you have two dynamics at play. And I always understood how the business worked. I just did not realize that in the footwear space, I don't care where you can go any store you want. Ask not a new brand, any brand with heritage, any brand that's over 30 years old, 20 years old. There is no one like us that owns it. And I say us because I'm Puerto Rican, I'm minority, and I see the space as being dominated by Nike. Almost like a monopoly.
Pretty much.
And it's time to change the narrative. So if I can, I just dropped a shoot today with Dame and Dad, right?
How did that collaboration come about, you and Dame?
Dame and I go way back. If you go, I talked about it today on the IG Live. Part of my history is I like to educate as I do the work, right? So while I was doing my first collection with my new partners, Dame was doing Streets is Watching. Jay-Z's in it. It's all soundtrack. His vision is pretty cool because he wants to make music, make videos, make a movie. Everything is all inclusive. He owns the music. He owns the artist. He didn't have clothes. So he asked my brand to sponsor. I gave him all the clothes he wanted. Great opportunity. So if you go see Streets is Watching, everybody's wearing hats. Excuse me. So that's how far back we go. He was just first starting. I didn't meet him until a few years later when he asked me to get involved with Rockaway. I couldn't, but I brought him to my partners. Like I said, my partners did not want any competition. I don't know why, because I was telling them there's this guy named Jay-Z going to be the next big thing. Now, mind you, I had Nas. I had a really good artist, but I was saying Jay-Z is going to be the next big thing. We should acquire this brand or let me help Dame get Rockaway off the ground. I said no. So we redirected Dame. He got a good deal with someone else, but we go far back as that. And then he invited me to be in the movie, State Property, and then Dame has always been respectful to me. Let's say that. I went and talked to him a couple times, but never, that's what you see is what you get with Dame, right? But he is much more understanding. Sit down, talk to him, and that was my thing. I would listen to what he's saying, and he would respect me. So the respect was always there. So as I'm relaunching the brands, I'm doing Coogee, I'm doing this. I'm always an advocate for people who are promoting Black youth, self-empowerment. David does that. So I don't know. One of his posts, I gave him some dap on it. He hit me back, and then we reunited again on social media. So again, my shoe brand had already been going, already starting, being sold only online. I don't care about retailers because that's how they control you. I only sell online.
You'll be able to control have control of your brand.
Correct. There's nothing will be on sale. I only give also. I only do deals with, or if someone wants, I know them, like leaders in Chicago or Hush Life Boutique. Those are all friends of mine that I did business with. So giving them gears is not anything but marketing. So I'll do marketing with like-minded folks, but I know if I build it, they're gonna come, right? And I'm gonna be very happy to say no, thank you. I don't need your money. I'm business. So with Dame, he really appreciated that. And again, I connected dots with him. I reminded him that we did this and this. And, I was like, just do a CEO thing. And he was like blown away. Like, you do that? Like, he was honored. And I'm like, I have control. Like, everything, I was telling him, everything you talk about, you're absolutely 100%, right? Correct. Maybe they don't like the message. Maybe they don't like how you said it. But everything you were saying every time was the truth. And I'm like, you're saying now you have social media. Now it can easily get out. It can't be manipulated because it's coming from you. So we started that way. We just started working. And I think he was surprised at how willing I was to support what he's doing, right? And I know Emery. I met Jay once or twice, but I know what Dame did for the team. I know that the way he helped me put his stuff, put my stuff in his movies. I'm here to help too. So and besides Jay, Emery, and them, they're with Puma. They don't own Puma, but they're with Puma. So there's no way I'm gonna be able to work with them anyway. So it's sort of an ideal situation. And at the same time, our history goes way. It's just ideal for us to sort of get together. And he hasn't asked me for anything. He just wears clothes, puts it on, and it's been helping the brand. But more important, the message is what it is. The message is self-empowerment. We have our own footwear brand. Probably the most successful footwear brand that's come out that is Hoka, and then there's Under Armour, right? Those are the two newest ones that have any kind of visibility, right? But they're white owned. They're all white owned. Everything's white owned. So the brand has heritage in footwear from Boston, and that's what you need for the youth to see if you're a solid brand. They do their research. The youth does their research. The youth looks and says, "Oh, this brand is from the '70s. Oh, it's gotta be legit." So that's one checkpoint, right? The next thing is minority owned. 2. Next one is got cool styles. It has heritage styles. 3, and so on and so on. So I know how to work it from there. So, but that's my main focus right now. I have a lot of great projects coming out with Coogee. A really incredible one around March, May, April, May. Incredible one. You're gonna see it, and you're gonna call me. I think another interview. But yeah, I got that happening. And
you'll be back if you're open to it. But yeah, whatever you got going on, you can always come back.
Yeah. So I mean, that's my main focus right now. Jaclar is really a real focus. Like I said, my son wanted to get into footwear. That's how I got into it. Now we're gonna relaunch another brand. I'm launching a brand called the Gucci Leather Company. And we have some more projects working. So,
you say what's the name of the brand? You said Ducci?
The Gucci.
Oh, I think I remember them from back in the day. They made leather jackets, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Oh man, that's gonna be a hit right there, man. I know you do your thing all the time, but that's gonna be out of here, man.
Yeah.
So I got a few other questions before we ride on out. We're gonna chop it up after this for a second, but the shoe brand that you have right now, are you going to incorporate that with Coogee, like doing like some collabs with that?
Yeah, eventually I can do it at any given time, but I don't want to be I don't want it necessarily to be automatic. I like to have each brand have its own identity. I must bring Jaclar up to a level where collaboration, it's not forced,
I got you. I know some people are going to be waiting on that too.
Yeah, I know. I want to do it. But I'll be respectful to both brands. Jaclar's a little young to be pulling at the tails of Coogee just yet, and people say, "Why don't you do it?" I'm like, well, I'm a purist. Like, if the brand deserves it, yes.
Yeah, that's most understandable. So, what would you suggest for somebody that want to maybe launch their own brand?
Oh man, YouTube. I didn't have YouTube at the time, so I think everything is YouTube. If you want to car, YouTube. If you want to repair something house, YouTube. So many tools out there now. So use all the tools. Usually start with a visual tool, YouTube, and that'll lead you to the other tools that you may need online, books you may need to purchase, techniques you may need to master. But you always start with a visual. For me, back in the day, was I had to physically go to that class to get to know her. She needed to be in my face. I need to be got me into this. So it's always a visual start. Luckily, you have YouTube, and everything you need on the phone. You can start a brand on the phone. It should be well thought out, but nonetheless, the technical part can actually start a brand overnight on you.
Yeah, that's facts on that. Wow. So, Willie, what can we find you at to get your merchandise and find you on social media? Where can we find you at?
Oh, if you need any work from me, like EscobarandSons.com, EscobarandSons.com. You can hit me at WillieEscobar.com. And Jaclar USA, names item dropped today. Go check that out. Jaclar, Jaclar USA.com. And of course, check out people coming up Fuji and hit me up.
I forgot to ask you this question. I think it was like in the 2010s or whatever. Did you guys make the Coogee dresses? Is that like aftermarket or whatever? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, we did. I mean, there was dresses on the marketplace, but I reached probably in 2015 as well.
I always wonder about that. I thought those was fake. I'm like, they're not making dresses.
Yeah, they were making everything. Coogee in the early 2000s did furniture, they did bedding, they did a lot of stuff.
I mean, it looked so good on them. I'm not gonna front, you know what I'm saying? Some of the people love the females in the Coogee dress with the little skull cap, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, we're gonna chop it up for a second, but other than that, this your boy Mr. Old School Ryder. Also, we streaming on the main channel, Mr. Old School Ryder, and also Flexing for Less as well, which is going to be the fashion channel as well. But other than that, you can find me on Mr. Old School Ryder at IG and YouTube, of course. The link will be in the bio, of course. But we do want to appreciate Mr. Willie Esco for coming through, blessing us today. All right, we're going to end this real quick and stay right there, Will.
All right.